Hello, Heatherwood Middle School. My name is Michael Sanders, and it's an honor to be invited back here. I haven't been in this auditorium since I graduated back in 2017, but I have a message that I wish that I learned when I was in middle school, whether I was in 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade. But it all begins by going back in time to when I was in middle school. As we can see, not a lot has changed, but something that's remained largely consistent with myself is that I've always enjoyed doodling. Whether it's in class, sorry teachers, it was in class, or at home or anything, I would always doodle, and I would end up drawing all these different characters and developing all these different stories until, over time, I eventually realized that I really wanted to make a superhero comic. I'd become really passionate about a set of characters I made, a plot that I had it all in my mind for years. But if you were to ask me what the comic actually looked like, well, I'd end up showing you a blank page because I had never drawn a single panel of the actual comic. So to explore why this happens, we're going to go ahead and take a look into the human mind and figure out what's going on in there and why are we not getting these creative ideas out to the world. So if we just take a zoom in here, as we can see, we have a lot of things on our mind, like school, hobbies, our family. But if you look very closely, you'll see something tucked away deep in the middle of our mind, and that's something I like to call the idea soup. This is the place where all of your creative ideas are born. This is where all of your daydreaming happens. This is where the stories you want to write are formed. This is where that painting that you really want to make is created, and maybe even music you want to write. So what I ask of you throughout this presentation is I want you to think of what's in your idea soup. What is a creative idea that you've had in the back of your mind? Once again, whether it's a story or a painting, anything. Think about something that you have yet to act on. So just hang on to that for this presentation. So what I'm essentially asking of you is I want you to take a big old spoon towards this idea soup, and I want you to go ahead and take a big scoop, walk away with it, because what I'm asking of you is I want you to just start. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, they dragged us out of class for this assembly just for some guy to tell you that creative projects happen when you start them. Which is true, but yeah, I'll admit it is unfortunately a little bit more complicated than that, as there's a big concept that gets in the way of all of our creative ideas and fully expressing them, otherwise everyone would be doing it. Now, as middle schoolers, I'm sure you're very aware of this. In fact, it's one of your favorite 4-letter F words. We'll say it all together. It's fear. Fear is the major thing that stops all of our creative projects, all of our creative thinking, because we may think that the project is not good enough, or perhaps we don't actually have the skills for this project. And worst of all, we are afraid that we are going to make mistakes. Now, I hate to break it to you, I'm going to hit you with the cold water. That's the point. The whole point is that we're going to end up making mistakes in our creative work, because mistakes are what make our creative work what it is and allow us to learn both in the medium that we're working with and as ourselves as people. See, as the medium, say you want to make a painting. You might end up doing some brush strokes, some techniques that you're not necessarily fond of in a painting, but because of that, you will end up making those mistakes and learning from them so that your paintings in the future will be far better. You'll also learn about yourself as a person, how you manage your ideas through your mistakes, how your mistakes let you learn what forms of art you actually prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and throw you into an example, a personal example of mine, about this guy. Now, this is a character I had made during the pandemic when there wasn't a whole lot to do. So I made this character, I gave him characters to surround himself with, I gave him a plot, I gave him a story, I gave him conflict. This is all sounding really familiar to that superhero comic, isn't it? But something that I wanted to do, something I wanted to try that's brand new, is that I wanted to give this guy a theme song. Now, it's important to note that I have no musical experience whatsoever. I have never composed a song. Heck, the most musical experience I really have is learning how to play the piano, where I could sort of tonk out the Angry Birds theme, the Married Life theme from Up, which goes to show how long ago I was learning how to play the piano. But I wanted to go ahead and give it a try, and I understood that there would be mistakes that I would be making along the way, as music making is not something that I had ever tried before. But instead of letting that stop me and letting it get stuck in the idea soup, I wanted to channel that and understand that the mistakes are going to allow me to learn what I'm doing and really get to trying out this brand new thing. So I went ahead, opened a music making program, and I ended up making a song.
Wow.
Now, I learned a few things about making music. First of all, I learned about the medium of making music. This is a program called FL Studio. I would recommend it. But I can tell you maybe what half of those buttons at the top do, which is more than I could previously, so I call that learning. But I also learned some things about how audio design works, whether it's panning sound from one ear to the other, the importance of when that happens, audio balancing and make sure nothing's all mixing together, and of course organization, as you can see. But I also learned some very important things about myself. The most important being that I don't particularly enjoy making music. So because of this, I was able to realize, oh, this is actually a very stressful process for me. So maybe music making, while I did moderately enjoy it, it's not necessarily my cup of tea. So because of that, I'm not going to let it get stuck in my idea soup anymore. I was able to get this idea out and into the world, but now I know for a fact that music making isn't really my thing, so I'm not going to stress over it. My daydreams aren't going to be filled with me wondering what kinds of music I can make because I know that it's not really my thing. So that's enough about me. I now want to bring it back, wrap it around to everyone here. So I want you to think about your creative idea that you have again, because the example I've given is one that you may consider a failure. That song was never finished. I didn't like making music. But I want you to think about your idea and the fact that even if it goes wrong, you can always come back to your idea. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going anywhere. Even when double checking this song to make this presentation, I listened to it back and was like, this isn't that bad, and maybe I could come back to it. Whether it's continuing it or building it from the ground up, whatever your idea is, whether it's a story or a painting or a book or a song, you can always come back to it and make it better. Because if you're not allowing yourself to jump into it because you don't know what you're doing, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You need to get in there and understand what it is that you're working on, so that way you can make something that you're proud of. Because ultimately, if you're making something for other people, then you're doing a disservice to yourself. You need to be making art that makes you happy, creative projects that are fulfilling to yourself. So the most important step is that you just go ahead and try, because once you prove to yourself that you can actually begin a project, I think that you'll find yourself going really quite far. So students of Heatherwood Middle School, I'm really excited to see what you all create. Thank you.